The arrival. The sleek diplomatic shuttle pierced through Zyrax's amber atmosphere, its hull gleaming under the planet's twin suns. Inside, Ambassador Sarah Chen took a deep breath, her dark eyes fixed on the approaching skyline of Zyrax Prime, the alien world's capital city. As Earth's newly appointed envoy to the Galactic Confederation, she carried the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. Landing sequence initiated. Ambassador. The AI pilot's voice chimed. Welcome to Zyrax. Sarah nodded, smoothing out her crisp Navy uniform. At 35, she was young for an ambassador, but her record spoke for itself. A former Special Forces operative turned diplomat, she embodied Earth's new approach to galactic relations. Peace through strength. The shuttle touched down on a landing pad jutting out from a towering spire of iridescent crystal. As the hatch hissed open, Sarah was hit by a wave of humid, spice-scented air. She stepped out, squinting against the harsh light of the binary stars overhead. A delegation of Zyraxians awaited her. Tall, willowy beings with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water, they cut imposing figures in their ceremonial armor. At their head stood General Vexkar, Supreme Commander of the Zyraxian military forces. Ambassador Chen. Vexkar rumbled, his translator implant giving his words a metallic edge. Zyrax welcomes you. Sarah bowed slightly, careful to keep her hands visible, a sign of respect in Zyraxian culture. Thank you, General. I bring greetings from Earth and the United Solar Systems. Vexkar's upper set of arms crossed over his chest, a gesture Sarah recognized as skepticism. Yes, your fledgling alliance. We've heard much about humanity's rapid ascent to the galactic stage. Some find it concerning. Sarah met his gaze steadily. We come in peace, General, but we're also prepared to defend that peace. A low murmur rippled through the Zyraxian delegation. Vexkar's iridescent eyes narrowed. Bold words, Ambassador. But words are wind. The Galactic Confederation has stood for millennia. What can your young species truly offer? Sarah smiled, a glint of steel in her eyes. Why don't I show you? The next few hours were a whirlwind of introductions and formalities. Sarah was led through the sprawling crystal palace that served as both seat of government and military headquarters for Zyrax. Every corridor, every chamber seemed designed to emphasize the ancient power and technological superiority of the Zyraxian people. Finally, they arrived at a vast, domed arena. Hundreds of Zyraxian soldiers lined the tiers, their armor glinting in the artificial light. In the center, a group of officers were engaged in combat drills, their 4 arms blur of motion as they wielded energy staves with terrifying precision. Impressive, Sarah remarked, genuinely admiring their skill. Vexkar's mandibles clicked in what she assumed was a smirk. This is but a fraction of our military might, Ambassador. Zyrax has been the shield of the Confederation for eons. Now perhaps you'd care to demonstrate these defensive techniques you claim humanity can offer. Sarah nodded, unzipping her uniform jacket to reveal a simple black bodysuit underneath. She stepped into the arena, acutely aware of the thousands of alien eyes upon her. In the interest of fairness, Vexkar announced, his voice booming through the arena. Ambassador Chen will face 3 of our junior officers in unarmed combat. She claims human defensive arts can overcome any foe. Let us see if actions match words. Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself as 3 Zyraxian warriors approached. Each stood nearly 2 meters tall, with 4 muscular arms and exoskeletons that looked tough enough to deflect small arms fire. In terms of raw strength and reach, she was hopelessly outmatched. But that had never stopped humanity before. The first Zyraxian charge, all 4 arms swinging in a devastating assault. Sarah waited until the last possible moment before moving. She sidestepped with liquid grace, using the alien's own momentum to send him stumbling past. A precise strike to a nerve cluster in his lower back sent him crashing to the ground, momentarily paralyzed. The other 2 attacked in unison, trying to flank her. Sarah dropped low, sweeping the legs out from under one, while simultaneously deflecting a blow from the other. She moved with economical precision, never meeting strength with strength, but rather redirecting and exploiting every opening. Within moments, all three Zoraxians were on the ground, disarmed and immobilized. The arena was dead silent. Sarah stood, barely breathing hard, and offered a hand to help one of her opponents up. The Zoraxian stared at her in disbelief before accepting. "How?" Vexkar demanded, his composure cracking. "They are each twice your size, with twice the number of limbs." Sarah turned to address not just Vexkar, but the entire arena. "Size, strength, even numbers. These are not what determine victory. Humanity has survived and thrived on a death world, General. We've faced predators, natural disasters, and our own warlike nature. Through it all, we've learned that adaptability, intelligence, and the will to survive trump raw power every time." She gestured to the Zoraxian warriors, who were slowly getting to their feet. "Your soldiers are brave and skilled, but they rely too heavily on their physical advantages. In a galaxy of diverse species and technologies, that can be a fatal flaw." Vexkar's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of intense thought. Sarah had learned. "You've made your point, Ambassador, but parlor tricks in an arena do not equate to battlefield prowess." Sarah nodded. "You're absolutely right, General. That's why I propose a joint training exercise. Let me work with a squad of your soldiers for 1 week. If at the end of that time, you're not convinced of the value of our techniques, I'll recommend to my government that we withdraw our petition to join the Confederation." A shocked murmur ran through the crowd. Sarah had just laid humanity's galactic future on the line. Vexkar studied her for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, Ambassador. 1 week. But be warned, Zoraxian training is not for the faint of heart. Many of our own do not survive it." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "With respect, General, neither is Earth's." As she followed Vexkar out of the arena, Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. The real challenge was just beginning. She had 1 week to prove that humanity's unique approach to combat, born from millennia of struggle on a hostile world, could revolutionize galactic warfare. More importantly, she had to show that humans were more than just warriors. They were innovators, adapters, and survivors. In a galaxy often divided by ancient grudges and rigid hierarchies, humanity's fresh perspective could be the key to a new era of cooperation. The fate of Earth's place in the cosmos now rested on Sarah's shoulders. But as she looked out over the alien cityscape of Zorax Prime, she felt a surge of determination. Humanity had beaten the odds before. They would do it again. The real fight for Earth's future was about to begin. The challenge. The following morning, Sarah stood at the edge of a vast training ground, watching as hundreds of Zoraxian soldiers moved through complex drills with machine-like precision. The alien sun beat down mercilessly, its heat amplified by the planet's dense atmosphere. Sarah wiped a bead of sweat from her brow, grateful for the cooling system built into her bodysuit. General Vexkar approached, flanked by a group of senior officers. His iridescent eyes narrowed as he regarded Sarah. "Are you prepared to begin, Ambassador? Or has the gravity of your challenge finally dawned on you?" Sarah met his gaze steadily. "I'm ready, General. Though I admit, I'm curious about the squad you've chosen for this exercise." Vexkar's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had come to recognize as amusement. "Observe, human." He raised one of his 4 arms, and a group of Zoraxian soldiers separated from the main body. As they approached, Sarah's eyes widened slightly. These weren't the fresh recruits she had expected, but hardened veterans. Their armor bore the marks of countless battles, and their movements spoke of years of combat experience. "Meet Squad Thornstrike," Vexkar announced. "Some of our most decorated warriors. If your human techniques can improve their performance, perhaps there is merit to your claims after all." Sarah nodded, understanding the implicit challenge. Vexkar wasn't just testing her skills. He was raising the stakes. Thank you, General. I look forward to working with Zyrax's finest. As Vexkar and his entourage departed, Sarah turned to face Squad Thornstrike. 6 pairs of alien eyes regarded her with a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and barely concealed disdain. Greetings, Sarah began, her translator implant converting her words to the clicking, chirping language of the Zyraxians. I'm Ambassador Sarah Chen. For the next week, I'll be introducing you to human combat techniques and strategies. One of the Zyraxians, his armor adorned with more battle markings than the others, stepped forward. I am Squad Leader Kaztur. With respect, Ambassador, we are elite soldiers of Zyrax. What can a soft-skinned diplomat from a backwater world teach us about warfare? Sarah smiled, recognizing the challenge for what it was. A fair question, Squad Leader. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. She gestured to the training ground. Choose your best hand-to-hand combatant. Let's see how they fare against a soft-skinned diplomat. Kaztur's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of surprise, Sarah had learned. He conferred briefly with his squad before a towering Zyraxian stepped forward, his exoskeleton gleaming with a metallic sheen that spoke of countless genetic enhancements. This is Vextor, Kaztur announced, unarmed combat specialist. He has never been defeated in single combat. Sarah nodded, moving to the center of the training ground. She could feel the eyes of not just Squad Thornstrike, but hundreds of other Zyraxian soldiers watching from the periphery. The pressure was immense, but Sarah drew strength from it. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about proving humanity's worth to the galaxy. Vextor towered over Sarah, his 4 arms flexing in anticipation. Sarah settled into a relaxed stance, her breathing calm and measured. Begin, Kaztur barked. Vextor launched into action, his multiple limbs a blur as he unleashed a barrage of strikes. Sarah moved with fluid grace, deflecting and redirecting rather than blocking outright. She used Vextor's superior reach against him, slipping inside his guard, where his extra arms became a hindrance rather than an advantage. A swift kick to the back of Vextor's knee joint sent him off balance. Sarah capitalized immediately, using leverage and precise strikes to nerve clusters to bring the massive alien to the ground. In a matter of seconds, Vextor found himself immobilized, with Sarah applying a careful joint lock that respected his alien physiology while rendering him helpless. The training ground fell silent. Sarah released Vextor and helped him to his feet, bowing slightly in respect. The Zyraxian warrior stared at her, mandibles twitching in what she hoped was grudging admiration. How? Kaztur demanded, echoing General Vexkar's question from the day before. Vextor is twice your size, with superior strength and reach. Sarah addressed not just Kaztur, but the entire squad. Size and strength are valuable assets, but they're not everything. Humanity evolved on a death world, surrounded by predators that were bigger, stronger, and faster than us. We survived and thrived not because of physical superiority, but because of adaptability and intelligence. She gestured to Vextor. Your warrior here is formidable, but he relies too heavily on his natural advantages. Against an opponent who can nullify those advantages, he becomes vulnerable. The techniques I'll teach you focus on using an opponent's strength against them, on identifying and exploiting weaknesses, and on thinking creatively in combat situations. Kaztur's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as he processed this information. And you believe these techniques can improve our already elite skills? Sarah nodded. I do. But more importantly, I believe they can help you adapt to face any enemy, not just those you're accustomed to fighting. The galaxy is vast and full of surprises. The most dangerous foe is often the one you underestimate. There was a long moment of silence as Squad Thornstrike exchanged glances. Finally, Kaztur stepped forward. Very well, Ambassador. We will learn your human ways. But be warned, Zyraxian training is brutal. Many of our own do not survive it. Are you prepared for that level of intensity? Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Squad leader, with all due respect, you haven't seen brutal until you've been through Earth's Special Forces training. I'm not just prepared for intensity. I welcome it. As the squad began to arrange themselves for the first lesson, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had gotten their attention, but that was only the first step. The real challenge lay ahead, reshaping millennia of ingrained combat doctrine in just 1 week. But as she looked at the curious faces of Squad Thornstrike, Sarah felt a spark of hope. These weren't just warriors. They were professionals, eager to learn and improve. If she could win them over, it would go a long way toward changing Zyraxian perceptions of humanity. The fate of Earth's place in the Galactic Confederation hung in the balance. But as Sarah began her first lesson, she felt more determined than ever. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and triumphed. This would be no different. The challenge was set. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The demonstration. 5 days into the training regime, the air on the Zyraxian practice field crackled with tension. Sarah stood at the center, her body glistening with sweat, surrounded by the towering forms of Squad Thornstrike. The alien warriors moved through a series of fluid motions, their 4 arms weaving complex patterns that blended Zyraxian combat forms with human martial arts. Again, Sarah barked, her voice hoarse from days of constant instruction. Remember, it's not about raw power. Feel the flow of energy, redirect it. Use your opponent's strength against them. Castor, the squad leader, stepped forward. His initial skepticism had given way to a grudging respect, though challenges remained. Ambassador, we've drilled these forms for days. When will we see their practical application in real combat scenarios? Sarah nodded, understanding their frustration. Today, she said, her eyes scanning the squad. You've learned the basics. Now it's time to put them to the test. A ripple of excitement passed through the Zyraxian warriors. Sarah couldn't help but smile. For all their alien physiology, their eagerness for a challenge was all too familiar. Squad Thornstrike. The booming voice of General Vexkar cut through the air. The general approached, flanked by a group of senior officers, and to Sarah's surprise, several representatives from other alien species, members of the Galactic Confederation. General, Sarah greeted, bowing slightly. We weren't expecting an audience today. Vexkar's iridescent eyes narrowed. The Confederation is curious about your progress, Ambassador. They've requested a demonstration of these human techniques you claim can revolutionize our combat doctrine. Sarah felt the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. This wasn't just about proving herself to the Zyraxians anymore. The entire Galactic Confederation was watching. Of course, General, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the pressure. We'd be honored to demonstrate. Vexkar nodded, a glint in his eye that Sarah couldn't quite interpret. Excellent. Squad Thornstrike will face off against an elite unit from our Crimson Guard. Let's see if your week of training has had any impact. As the Crimson Guard unit took their positions, Sarah gathered Squad Thornstrike around her. Remember everything we've practiced, she said, meeting each warrior's gaze. They'll be stronger, but you'll be smarter. Use their momentum against them, exploit openings, and above all, work as a team. Castor clicked his mandibles, a Zyraxian expression of determination. We won't let you down, Ambassador. The 2 squads faced each other across the practice field. The Crimson Guard were an intimidating sight, their armor adorned with the marks of countless victories, their postures radiating confidence bordering on arrogance. Begin. Vexkar's command echoed across the field. The Crimson Guard charged forward, their traditional tactics on full display, overwhelming force, using their superior strength and multiple limbs to batter their opponents into submission. But Squad Thornstrike didn't meet them head-on as expected. Instead, they flowed like water around the Crimson Guard's assault. Sarah watched with pride as her students applied the techniques she taught them. They used the Crimson Guard's momentum against them, redirecting powerful blows and countering with precise strikes to vulnerable points. Vextor, the squad's hand-to-hand specialist, was a revelation. Where once he'd relied solely on brute strength, now he moved with a fluid grace that belied his massive frame. He slipped past the guard of a crimson warrior, using 2 arms to lock his opponent's limbs, while the other 2 delivered a series of rapid strikes to nerve clusters. Across the field, similar scenes played out. Squad Thornstrike fought with a synchronicity that caught the Crimson Guard off guard. They coordinated their attacks, covering each other's blind spots and creating openings for their teammates to exploit. The alien dignitaries watched in stunned silence as the tide of battle turned. The Crimson Guard, for all their vaunted skill and strength, found themselves consistently outmaneuvered. One by one, they were disabled or forced to yield. In a matter of minutes, it was over. Squad Thornstrike stood victorious, barely winded, while the Crimson Guard picked themselves up from the ground, mandibles clicking in disbelief. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding with a mixture of pride and trepidation. She turned to face General Vexcar and the assembled Confederation representatives. "This," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent field, "is what humanity brings to the Galactic Confederation. Not just new techniques, but a new way of thinking about combat and cooperation." She gestured to Squad Thornstrike. "These warriors were already among your best, but by embracing new ideas, by learning to adapt and think creatively, they've reached new heights. Imagine what we could achieve if we applied this philosophy not just to combat, but to diplomacy, to scientific research, to all aspects of galactic cooperation." The alien representatives murmured among themselves, their expressions unreadable to Sarah's human eyes. General Vexcar stepped forward, his gaze intense. "Impressive, Ambassador," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "You've certainly given us much to consider. But tell me, do you truly believe these techniques would be effective against a real enemy, one not bound by the rules of a training exercise?" Before Sarah could respond, a piercing alarm cut through the air. Vexcar's communicator crackled to life, emitting a stream of urgent Zyraxian speech that Sarah's translator struggled to keep up with. The general's expression shifted from skepticism to grim determination. He turned to address the gathered crowd, his voice tight with tension. "It seems we'll have a chance to test the ambassador's methods sooner than expected," he announced. "We've just received word that a Krell battle fleet has entered the system. Their intentions are clearly hostile." A wave of shock rippled through the assembled aliens. Sarah's mind raced. The Krell were a notoriously aggressive species, known for their lightning-fast raids on vulnerable worlds. If they were here in force, Zyrax was in serious danger. Vexcar's gaze locked onto Sarah. "Well, Ambassador, you claim human tactics can revolutionize warfare. Here's your chance to prove it. Will you stand with us against this threat?" Sarah felt the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. This was no longer about political maneuvering or cultural exchange. The fate of an entire world, and possibly humanity's place in the galaxy, now hung in the balance. She straightened her spine, meeting Vexcar's gaze with steely determination. "General, humanity has never shied away from a fight, especially when innocent lives are at stake. We stand with Zyrax." A ripple of approval passed through the Zyraxian warriors. Vexcar nodded, a new respect evident in his alien features. "Very well," he said. "Let's see if your human ingenuity can help us survive this day." As alarms blared and warriors rushed to battle stations, Sarah took a deep breath. The real test was about to begin. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The Krell were coming, and Sarah was determined to give them a welcome they'd never forget. The crisis. The command center of Zyrax Prime buzzed with frantic activity. Holographic displays flickered with real-time battle data, showing the approaching Krell fleet, a swarm of angular predatory ships that seemed to devour the stars themselves. Sarah stood beside General Vexcar, her eyes darting between the tactical displays and the grim faces of the Zyraxian High Command. The stakes had never been higher. This wasn't just about proving humanity's worth anymore. An entire world hung in the balance. The Krell fleet will breach our outer defenses in approximately 30 minutes, a Zyraxian officer reported, his voice tight with tension. Our planetary shield will not withstand a concentrated assault for long. Vexkar's mandibles clicked in frustration. We need more time to mobilize our full defensive fleet. If they break through before we're ready, then we make sure they don't break through. Sarah interjected, her mind racing. General, I have an idea, but it's unorthodox. I'll need your trust. And Squad Thornstrike. Vexkar fixed her with a penetrating stare. For a moment, Sarah thought he might dismiss her outright. But then he nodded. Speak, Ambassador. At this point, we have little to lose. Sarah quickly outlined her plan, using the holographic display to illustrate key points. As she spoke, she saw the doubt in the Zyraxian officer's eyes slowly give way to cautious hope. It's audacious, Vexkar said when she finished. Perhaps even foolhardy. But if it works, it will work, Sarah assured him. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before. We've learned to think outside the box. It's how we've survived. Now let's put those lessons to use. Within minutes, Sarah found herself aboard a sleek Zyraxian interceptor, flanked by the members of Squad Thornstrike. As they rocketed towards the approaching Krell fleet, she ran through the plan one last time. Remember, she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, the Krell rely on overwhelming force and terror tactics. They're not used to facing enemies who can adapt quickly. We're going to use that against them. Castor, the squad leader, nodded. We're with you, Ambassador. For Zyrax. And for Earth. As they approached the Krell fleet, Sarah activated a specially modified jamming device, a human design, hastily adapted to Zyraxian technology. It wouldn't stop the Krell for long, but it didn't need to. Now, Sarah commanded. Squad Thornstrike's interceptors broke formation, each targeting a different Krell vessel, using the precision flying techniques Sarah had taught them, a blend of human fighter tactics and Zyraxian maneuverability. They danced through the Krell formation. The massive Krell ships, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of small, agile fighters in their midst, began to fire wildly. Sarah grinned as she saw her plan unfolding. The Krell's powerful weapons, designed to punch through capital ship armor, were too slow to track the nimble Zyraxian craft. More importantly, in their confusion, the Krell began hitting their own ships. Phase 2. Sarah called out. Structural weak points, just like we practiced. The Zyraxian fighters unleashed a barrage of precisely targeted shots. They weren't trying to destroy the Krell ships outright, an impossible task for their small weapons. Instead, they aimed for key systems, weapons emplacements, shield generators, and propulsion units. On her tactical display, Sarah saw Krell ships beginning to drift out of formation, their systems crippled by the surgical strikes. The coordinated Krell assault was rapidly degenerating into chaos. But the Krell were not so easily defeated. A massive battlecruiser, easily 10 times the size of the Zyraxian interceptors, broke through the melee. It headed straight for Zyrax, its weapons charging for a planet-killing blow. Ambassador. Vexkar's voice crackled over the comm. That cruiser's weapons will pierce our shields. We need more time. Sarah's mind raced. They were so close, but one ship could undo everything. Then, an idea struck her, crazy, reckless, and utterly human. Squad Thornstrike, on me, she commanded. Remember the thermo-excavation maneuver we discussed? We're doing it live. The Zyraxian fighters fell into formation behind Sarah's interceptor. Together, they streaked towards the Krell battlecruiser, weaving through a storm of enemy fire. Ambassador, what are you doing? Vexkar demanded. Showing you how humans handle impossible odds, Sarah replied, her voice tight with concentration. Zyraxian shields are heat-resistant, right? About to put that to the test. As they approached the battlecruiser, Sarah led Squad Thornstrike in a complex series of maneuvers. They skimmed the surface of the massive ship, their shields leaving superheated trails in their wake. To an outside observer, it would have looked like an elaborate, suicidal dance. But Sarah knew exactly what she was doing. The squad's paths intersected at key points, their combined shield trails creating overlapping areas of intense heat. They were essentially using their own ships to cut through the Krell cruiser's hull. Alarms blared in Sarah's cockpit as her interceptor systems strained under the stress. But she gritted her teeth and pressed on. They only needed a few more seconds. With a thunderous explosion, a section of the Krell battlecruiser's hull blew outward. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as atmosphere vented into space. The mighty ship began to list, its trajectory towards Zirax disrupted. "Now, General," Sarah shouted into her comm. "Hit it with everything you've got." A barrage of fire from the Ziraxian defense fleet, which had used the precious time bought by Sarah's tactics to mobilize, struck the wounded Krell ship. It stood no chance. The battlecruiser broke apart in a spectacular series of explosions, its debris harmlessly scattering into space. As Squad Thornstrike regrouped, Sarah saw the rest of the Krell fleet beginning to retreat. Without their flagship, and with their formation in tatters, they had lost their appetite for battle. "Ambassador," Vexkar's voice came over the comm, a note of awe in his usually stern tone. "Return to base. I believe we have much to discuss." As Sarah piloted her battered interceptor back towards Zirax, she allowed herself a moment of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, a handful of fighters using human tactics had turned the tide against a superior force. But as the adrenaline faded, Sarah realized this was only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, convincing the Galactic Confederation that humanity's unorthodox thinking wasn't just a fluke, but a valuable asset in facing the unknown dangers of the cosmos. As Zirax's twin suns peeked over the planet's curve, bathing her cockpit in golden light, Sarah smiled. Whatever came next, she was ready. Humanity had proven its worth today, and she was determined to ensure the galaxy wouldn't forget it. The future, vast and full of possibilities, awaited. The Alliance. The great hall of Zirax Prime glittered under the light of 1,000 crystalline chandeliers. Delegates from across the Galactic Confederation had gathered, their diverse forms a testament to the vastness and variety of life in the cosmos. At the center of it all stood Sarah Chen, her crisp dress uniform a stark contrast to the exotic garb of the alien diplomats surrounding her. It had been 2 weeks since the Krell invasion. 2 weeks of intense debriefings, political maneuvering, and endless questions. Now, finally, the Confederation was ready to render its judgment on humanity's petition for membership. General Vexkar approached, his iridescent eyes reflecting the shimmering lights. "Ambassador," he greeted, his tone warmer than Sarah had ever heard it. "Are you prepared for the Council's decision?" Sarah nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "As ready as I'll ever be, General. Whatever happens, it's been an honor to work with you and your people." Vexkar's mandibles clicked in what Sarah now recognized as amusement. "Indeed. I must admit, when you first arrived, I thought your human techniques were nothing more than parlor tricks. I've never been so glad to be proven wrong." Before Sarah could respond, a hush fell over the gathered delegates. The members of the Galactic High Council filed into the hall, taking their places on an elevated platform. The Chief Counselor, a being of living energy contained within a sophisticated exosuit, stepped forward. "Esteemed members of the Confederation," the Chief Counselor's voice resonated through the hall, "we have gathered to address the petition of the human species for full membership in our galactic community. Recent events have cast this petition in a new light." Sarah felt the weight of countless alien gazes upon her as the Chief Counselor continued. The defense of Zirax Prime against the Krell incursion was nothing short of miraculous. It demonstrated not only the tactical acumen of humanity, but also their ability to adapt, innovate, and cooperate with other species in the face of overwhelming odds. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah stood tall, her chin held high. Furthermore, the chief counselor went on, the human ambassador's willingness to risk her own life alongside Xeraxian forces speaks to a courage and commitment to galactic peace that we find most admirable. The chief counselor paused, his energy form pulsing with what Sarah hoped was approval. It is the decision of this council that humanity has more than proven its worth as potential members of the Galactic Confederation. We hereby extend an invitation for Earth and its colonies to join our ranks as full members, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. A cheer went up from the assembled delegates. Sarah felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. They had done it. Humanity had secured its place among the stars. As the initial excitement died down, the chief counselor raised a hand for silence. However, we believe that simply granting membership would be an inadequate response to the unique perspective humanity has brought to our attention. Sarah's brow furrowed in confusion. What more could they want? Ambassador Chen, the chief counselor, addressed her directly. Your actions, and the philosophy behind them, have demonstrated a need for change within our own ranks. The Krell invasion exposed weaknesses in our defensive strategies, weaknesses that your human tactics were able to overcome. The chief counselor's energy form pulsed brightly. Therefore, we propose the creation of a new division within the Confederation's military and scientific apparatus, a task force dedicated to unorthodox problem-solving, combining the strengths of multiple species to create adaptive solutions to the challenges that face us all. Sarah's eyes widened as she realized the implications. This wasn't just about membership anymore. The Confederation was offering humanity a chance to reshape galactic society from within. We would like you, Ambassador Chen, to lead this initiative, the chief counselor concluded, to bring your human ingenuity to bear on a galactic scale. For a moment, Sarah was speechless. She looked around the hall, seeing not just acceptance but genuine excitement on the faces of the alien delegates. Her gaze fell on Squad Thornstrike, standing proudly in their dress uniforms. Castor gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. Chief Counselor, esteemed members of the Confederation, I am deeply honored by your offer. On behalf of humanity, I accept. She paused, looking out over the sea of alien faces, but I would add one condition. This task force should not be led by humanity alone. True innovation comes from diversity, from the meeting and melding of different perspectives. Sarah gestured to the Xeraxian delegation. I propose a joint leadership with representatives from multiple species. Let us show the galaxy what we can achieve when we combine our strengths, rather than focusing on our differences. The hall erupted in applause. The chief counselor's energy form pulsed with approval. A most wise suggestion, Ambassador. It shall be done. As the formalities concluded and the delegates began to mingle, Sarah found herself surrounded by well-wishers from a dozen different species. She caught sight of General Vexcar approaching, accompanied by a group of high-ranking officers from various Confederation worlds. It seems we'll be working together quite closely, Ambassador, Vexcar said, extending one of his 4 hands in a gesture of friendship. I look forward to seeing what other surprises humanity has in store for us. Sarah grasped his hand firmly, a smile spreading across her face. As do I, General. As do I. As she looked out over the crowded hall, at the mingling of species and the excited exchanges of ideas already taking place, Sarah felt a swell of pride and hope. This was why she had joined the diplomatic corps, why she had pushed so hard for humanity to reach the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also fraught with dangers. By bringing together the best aspects of every species, by fostering cooperation and innovative thinking, they were creating something greater than the sum of its parts. The future stretched out before them, filled with endless possibilities. There would be challenges, of course, threats they couldn't yet imagine. But Sarah was confident that together they could face anything the universe threw at them. Humanity had found its place among the stars, and the stars, it seemed, would never be the same again.